What if I told you that there's a single idea that connects a huge global economic crisis to, say, your friend's mood? It sounds kind of crazy, right? But it's a real thing. It's called the ripple effect. And once you start to see it, I promise you'll start seeing it absolutely everywhere. It might just change the way you look at, well, everything.
Just think about it for a second. A single event, one decision, one tiny disturbance. It never just stops there, does it? No, it creates waves. They expand outwards, touching things you would never, ever expect.
So here's the official sort of textbook definition. An initial disturbance doesn't just happen and then poof, it's gone. It propagates, which is a fancy way of saying it moves outward, right? It just keeps going, getting bigger, and affecting more and more of the system it's in. And to really get our heads around this, we got to go back to where the whole idea, the whole metaphor even started.
So, how does this whole thing even begin? We're going to start with the basics, the literal physical wave that gives this entire concept its name. This right here is a ripple tank. And it looks pretty simple, but it's an amazing tool that physicists use to show us the fundamentals of how waves behave. You know, how they bounce off things, bend around corners, and crash into each other. It is the perfect physical picture for how influence spreads through any kind of system.
Okay, so we've seen the little wave in the tank. Now, let's scale this up. And I mean way, way up. We're going from a little pan of water to the incredibly complex, interconnected systems that run our entire world, like the global economy.
Let's apply that exact same idea to something like a global supply chain. A single factory shutting down somewhere, or one ship getting stuck in a canal, that's not just a local problem. Oh no, it cascades, it snowballs, creating delays and shortages and price hikes thousands of miles away. That one initial shock sends ripples through the entire system. Now, you might have heard of something that sounds kind of similar called the bullwhip effect. It's really important to know the difference, though. The bullwhip effect, that's more about bad forecasting messing with inventory levels. But the ripple effect is so much bigger. It's when a massive disruption actually forces the entire structure of the supply chain to change. And understanding that difference helps us see why some problems are just temporary hiccups, while others can totally reshape whole industries for years to come. And make no mistake, these economic ripples have a staggering human cost. Those supply chain shocks can lead to global inflation, which of course hits the world's most vulnerable people the hardest. It's exactly what the UN's Martin Griffiths was talking about here. Just because a crisis isn't on the front page anymore doesn't mean people aren't still feeling its effects. It's ripples.
All right, so we've seen how this all works in physics and in economic systems. But what about the most complex system of all? Us, people. How do things like ideas and feelings and actions ripple through our social circles?
3. Just remember that number. It's called the 3 degrees of influence. There's some incredible research that shows your influence doesn't just stop with the people you know, with your friends. It actually extends to your friends' friends and even your friends' 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 friends. It's kind of mind-blowing, right? You are literally affecting people you have never even met. So why 3? Why does the ripple kind of die out after that? Well, researchers have a few ideas. First, the message itself just gets weaker, kind of like that game of telephone we all played as kids. Second, our social connections just aren't as stable that far out. And third, it could actually be an evolutionary thing, a holdover from when we lived in small tribes and, 3 degrees of connection was basically our entire world. This timeline shows a perfect, real-world example of a social ripple in action. It started with a few initial reports about one powerful person. That created a wave of allegations against others. And then that wave grew into the global #MeToo movement, a single event that rippled across the entire planet, changing conversations and institutions everywhere. So what's the engine that drives a social ripple like that? Well, it actually has a name. It's called emotional contagion. It's how feelings and behaviors can spread through a crowd almost like a virus. One person's courage, when it's shared publicly, can become contagious and inspire thousands of other people to finally act. Okay, so we've seen these ripples in physics, in economics, in society. Let's bring it all the way home, to the individual level. How can you start a positive ripple in your own life? This is really the most important question, isn't it? We know these forces exist, but can we actually use them for good? And the answer is a definite yes. And it all starts with understanding the psychology of perfect timing. There's this phenomenon called the fresh start effect, which comes from some amazing research by Katie Milkman. She found that certain dates, like New Year's or the first of the month, they act like chapter breaks in our life story. They give us this mental permission slip to say, okay, that was the old me. This is the new me. And that makes us way more motivated to change.
And what's so cool is that these moments are everywhere. It's not just about January 1st. Think about it. The first day of a new month, or even just a Monday, your birthday, moving to a new apartment, starting a new job. All of these are opportunities. They're like these supercharged moments when your brain is totally primed and ready for a change.
So how do you actually ride this wave? It's really just a simple 3-step process. First, look ahead and spot one of those fresh start moments coming up. Next, pick just one meaningful goal. Not 10, one. And finally, and this is the absolute key, use that burst of motivation to automate the new behavior. Set up that automatic transfer to your savings account. Sign up for the whole semester of that class. You create a system that keeps working for you long after that fresh start high wears off. And there you have it. That's the whole journey of this one idea. We saw how it scales up from a simple drop of water to the most complex global systems, and then, finally, all the way back down to a single powerful decision that you can make for yourself. So, as we wrap this up, I'm just going to leave you with this one question. Now that you know how dramatically even the smallest actions can spread, what ripple will you start today? What positive wave are you going to choose to create?